Thank you, Sunny, so much for this invitation. I very much am grateful for your patriotism and service. You sort of, I remember one of my favorite quotes in American history, what JFK spoke about in his speech, which was, you know, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. I think Sunny is sort of the embodiment of that. That's what, when you were making your opening remarks, that's what I was thinking. So thank you for everything that you do. And your good friend, Mr. Henry Kang, who is my good friend here locally, who invited me. Henry and his wife, Sunny, also very much do those types of philanthropic and service acts locally here. So that's how you know, I got to know them working on community projects over the years and decades. So thank you so much. I think it must be a generational thing because, well, I swear, we did not talk. Abraham and I have known each other for a long time. We have not spoken prior to this event, but somehow our thinking and our notes seem to match. But I think Abraham framed it exactly right, or exactly the way I view the answer to your question. I'm not sure essential is the best word to describe the Korean American community, because it's sort of, you know, it's not humble, but also, and I do think that most Koreans are humble people. There's a sort of a graciousness and dignity about the way we present ourselves. But also that, you know, if 2 million Korean Americans suddenly disappeared from America, will America still function well? I think so. But have Korean Americans made enormous contributions? And I would say we sort of punch above our weight. You described it as sort of 2 to 3x economic contributions. However you want to describe it. I think it was Pastor, is it Choi Jin, who described about the strength of Korean women and Korean mothers. I could not agree more with that. I married one, I know how strong she is. So there are just wonderful contributions and wonderful individual contributions of Chloe Kim you mentioned earlier. And you know, I met Jim Kim, where I saw him again when I was visiting Seoul recently. Former president of World Bank. There's so many Korean Americans that have made enormous individual contributions to this country. But I think the things that stand out for me that make Korean Americans unique in our cultural experience is, I sort of think of Korean Americans as the Irish of the East. You ever heard that expression? You know, we're sort of like the underdog. We're always beaten up by the big countries around us, China and Japan and Russia. Some might even say the US, though I think the Koreans now, most Koreans view very strongly that we have a very unique partnership with the United States. And so there are certain unique things that I think of Korean chung, the warmth, for those who are not Korean American. It's not love, there isn't a direct translation for this word, but it's a heart, it's a warmth, it's Sunny Park. Sunny Park represents Korean chung in the way that he goes about expressing himself in the world. So they're definitely unique contributions. So I agree with Abraham's perspective that we're not essential, but we've made enormous contributions to this country already in our relatively short history. However, we can do a lot better too. And when you asked me to speak, 4 things came to mind, and for respect for my other panelists, I'll describe all 4, but let me just start with the first one. I think it's really important that, and others have already spoken about this, that political activism is something that the second, third, and future generations really focus on as an action plan, as a to-do item, and to really get coordinated. General Ellis and Mr. Levy both spoke about different aspects, public service and different aspects of it. But I'm talking more direct political activism in a nonpartisan or bipartisan way, where we get involved very directly in the American political process. That could mean political contributions, forming a political action committee of sorts. It can mean getting involved in individual elections and supporting candidates. A friend of mine who's a councilwoman in Philadelphia, is now thinking about running for mayor, which would be super exciting. She's actually the top rated, she's the #1 polling candidate, or potential candidate, because she hasn't officially announced. So there are wonderful Korean Americans now, slowly but surely, making an impact in the political scene. I think we should do more to accelerate that process. Here's some examples. In 2000, now, this was 22 years ago, my good friend Dr. Young-Duk Kim, my good mentor, Grace Lou Volkhausen, who's a longtime activist from Brooklyn, and I started an organization called the Korean American League for Civic Action 22 years ago, right here in New York City. And we realized, and it was for that purpose of doing more political activism, but we realized our community wasn't ready. There weren't enough political activists out there. There weren't enough people making political contributions. There were definitely individual examples, but not a collective impact. So instead of that, we started an organization that focused on public leadership and taking young people who showed great promise and talent and showing them what the political process is like. In fact, we borrowed it from the Coro Foundation. The Coro is a wonderful public service program based here in New York City and some other cities. CORO, it started in San Francisco. And I'm proud to say, actually, CKA took over the CALCA program that started here in New York in 2000. It's still running 22 years later. Thank you, Abraham. He's expanded it and he's gone national, so we have programs running out of both Washington, D.C. and New York. But these are the types of programs that we need to accelerate, and really, we should have a West Coast operation, a Georgia public leadership program, where we take young people and really show them and introduce them to leaders like General Ellis, who has a great example of military leadership and service. And a second example of political activism, when I was serving as mayor of my hometown, a councilman in Boston and I kept on being invited to all these Korean American forums like this around the country. And finally I said, Sam Yoon is his name, and I said, why don't we just join forces? This is sort of like, we can't be the only two spokespeople in the country. Back in 2007, 2008, I remember. So we toured the country and tried to form something like a committee of 100, or a network of young people who wanted to do more political activism. We realized again in 2008, we were not ready. But that sparked, and Yul Kwan and some others that Abraham knows very well, eventually turned into the Council of Korean Americans. So I'm proud that Abraham, our good friend, is taking it to the next second and third generation of leadership. But those are the types of programs that we should be accelerating. Thank you.